John Upstrom, January 30th, 1952. Born in Itasca, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, kind of close to Woodfield Shopping Mall. I guess my first memory was the family trips. Dad would always be singing in the car, so we learned all the old songs, Mitch Miller and everything else over the many years. And that started the interest, and then more formally, I guess, when I got into even junior high school. You know, they had a choir in junior high school, and I sang in that, and then all through high school as well. And then I took up cello when I was in high school, and that's pretty much where I got my beginnings. In elementary school, we lived outside of town. There were like 3 elementary schools, and because of busing, we moved around from school to school to school. But they were all in Itasca. And then my high school was Lake Park High School, which is in Roselle, Illinois, which was where we all went from that part of the suburbs.
And what type of activities were you involved in when you were through school?
A lot of music. You know, I was in both the orchestra and chorus in high school, and they were, of course, during the school day, so that was 2 periods every day of the week, if I remember right. And then some other things. I was always kind of a geek. I was a ham radio operator. I was actually in gymnastics my freshman year, so I did a lot of different things and enjoyed all of them. I had a very positive experience when I started cello in high school. Had a tremendous teacher. I didn't start till my junior year of high school. That's when I started cello. And her name was Nancy Johnson, and just a delightful woman and great teacher. And I progressed pretty quickly on it to the point that I was able to play in a community symphony the summer after I graduated. So that really piqued my interest. But when I first started college, I went to Champaign, University of Illinois, and as an electrical engineering major. I didn't really like that, so then but I kept playing cello while I was down there, but then I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I actually went in the Air Force. So I spent a hitch in the Air Force after that, and then when I got out of the Air Force, then when I came back, I went to Western Illinois. I wanted to do music. I hadn't really thought about the teaching. My dad, who was actually a contractor, a stonemason, he always said, be a teacher. He really wanted that for me. I don't know why they said it. He was probably him and my mom were probably my biggest fans when I was in high school and doing all the choral stuff. So they liked that. So I think Dad encouraged me some. But when I got to Macomb again, I was involved in both choral and orchestra, but I was primarily a cello major and music ed. I knew I wasn't going to be doing performance, and pretty much had made my mind up that that's the direction I wanted to go. But in the back of my mind, I still had this hankering for electronics and business that had started with my engineering at Illinois. Plus, when I was in the Air Force, I fixed radios. That was my job when I was there. So I had those two competing interests a little bit, I guess, going through there. So, but once I got into school in Macomb, I really found I was very much enjoying what I was doing. Yes, I was involved in the 2 main choirs as well while I was there. And then I was also involved in the Newcomers Swing Choir. Well, Newcomers was a 24 person swing choir that Bob Hills began, and he was probably essentially the premier program of probably most of the state. I was actually in the rhythm section. I played guitar for them. I wasn't one of the performers, or at least one of the singers and dancers, but I played guitar with them for probably 3 years, I think. Was very involved in what was going on there. And they also would do occasionally, they would do like little talent shows where they wouldn't do just the whole choir. They would have individuals perform. So whenever that would happen, I'd usually get the guitar out and do a James Taylor song or 2 or something like that. So I had a lot of fun with that. I student taught that fall, the fall of 76.
And where was that?
Pekin High School. Pekin High School. Student taught there.
And they have had a history of show choir there too.
Yes, they did. Yes. They had one started when I was there student teaching. So I did that, and then after I student taught, then saw the job posting for up in Ottawa, or at least one of the people at Macomb told me about it, so I communicated with them, and next thing I know, I was up there working. Ralph Nelson, I think, was the principal. Well, he was the principal of the school and probably the main person I talked with. I also met with Ray McKeever, of course, and probably both Paul and BJ Moose, in my interviews, as well as a few other people. I loved it. First off, I've always loved the water, so the fact it's on the river was a real plus for me. And I was really impressed with the school and community. I think the one thing that was a real, almost a shock to me was when I first went to the school and was walking down the halls. Here they had all these beautiful paintings on the walls that weren't protected in any way, and it was amazing that you would see that in a high school. Very friendly place, very, very supportive. From the superintendent, Gordon Fitter at the time, who I got to know, and he left, I think, the year before I did and went down to Illinois State, and then I went to Illinois State for my master's, so he and I kept in contact down there. Great, great guy. BJ Moose had been doing the orchestra, and he decided he didn't want to do that anymore, so he left over and he continued doing music theory and music appreciation. So I was given the orchestra, and then to fill my schedule, they had me teaching some general business classes. So I taught, I think, 2 general business classes. Typically, there would be probably 3 concerts a year, 3 formal concerts. It would usually be a Christmas or winter concert would be the first one. Then there would be a mid-spring concert and then an end-of-the-year concert. We did some of both. There would usually be at the end of the year, there'd be a combined concert, usually at the end of, in May or something like that, where the band and orchestra and choir would all perform together in the same concert and then usually do one combined number at the end. It was a great place. The people, I think of several things that made the place special to me, I guess, but one of them was the faculty there. Ray McKeever was the salt of the earth, my mentor. I love that man. He was just amazing. If I could have had half of his command and talent, I'd have been a huge success. Really, really great guy. But then so many others. I mean, there were so many things about Ottawa that I didn't see other places. For example, Bill Meyer did his Fine Arts Festival every year. I don't know how long he continued that, but I know it was going strong when I was there. And
a long time. It's still going on, even though he's no longer at the high school.
Right. And he would put that together every year, and it was such a fun event, and I think it was not only neat that what he did to make it happen, but the school got behind it 100%. I mean, they would allow students to get out of classes to go to these different concerts and events and poetry readings, and it was just really a neat opportunity. As well as just so many people around the campus, around the high school, were just so supportive of the music program. Of course, Steve Malinsky was a great friend, and him. Dean Barrickman was involved. We did some musicals, and Dean got real involved with the helping us do the sets and things of that nature. Ev Lunning, great guy. He also played cello, so we had a little fun with that. Matter of fact, one Fine Arts Festival, that would have been my first semester. They would do some fun little like talent show thing as part of it. I remember Ev Lunning, myself, and Dale Scheib. Dale was Ray McKeever's student teacher the same semester I started. So we did a little trio. I can't remember what song it was, but 2 cellos, and Dale played the bass clarinet. And what he would do is every now and then he would, for fun, hit kind of a real squawky sound note like this. Just we'd kind of look around like this, and we kept trying to play the song, and maybe it was Pop Goes the Weasel, I don't remember, but it doesn't matter. But at the end of it, we did it. We all looked around, and then somebody threw a rubber chicken in from off stage that landed in the midst of us, and that was just the fun we had there. It was just a fun group like that. And I almost Phil Rothman, if I'm saying that right, Rothman, I think.
Correct.
Yeah, he was another one that was great. And Bill Myers, of course, I already mentioned him, and so just a nice group. A lot of the coaches, Bernie Fusco was great. So many schools, high schools, even colleges. One of the things they lament is that they seem to be silos, where all the math people stay together, all the science people stay together, all the music people stay together. And Ottawa didn't feel that way. It was basically one big silo. Everybody worked together for the same event. Administration. Russ Swenson, who was the janitor, when I needed something, when I was doing a concert, he would be there, and I'd just say, Russ, can you help me with this? It's done. He would take care of it. So just great people. Well, probably the one thing that just came to mind, I talked about how supportive the faculty, administration, everybody at the high school was, and the students, but the other is the community. The community of Ottawa is so strongly behind their music programs. I probably have 50 letters from different people that went to concerts and says, thanks for doing this. And they're just always very supportive of everything you're doing. And I think that's part of the beauty of Ottawa. The whole town loves their music, just loves their music. And from Don Moorhead, one of the doctors that was years ago was very involved, Bill Spicer, I can just name people that I recall, that were just so supportive of the music. And some of them had kids in school, some of them didn't, but they were just great supporters of what we were doing. Really, they're all pretty fond memories. I think watching the choir develop when I was doing the choir, because it's they were very enthused about it. Paul and BJ were tremendous directors and very traditional in their music style. There was I think a hunger for something a little more current pop-like. So they were eager for that. And so when I came in, and that was my background, to do the traditional stuff as well as that. So to watch the choirs develop and the excitement and enthusiasm for the students, that was probably the main thing. I'd already started the swing choir, so I knew the choral program well. I knew the kids well. I loved the orchestra. I enjoyed it tremendously, but I thought the choral thing was something I wanted to explore a little bit more. And I asked them if that would be a possibility, and they said, yeah, we could do that. I had a pretty strong background in the show choir, swing choir genre from Western, and speaking with a few of the ladies, the young girls in the choir, and we put together a little group called Morning, Noon, and Night. It was nine girls that we did some SSA arrangements of things and more pop sorts of things. Not choreographed, anything like that, but just the beginning point. And that was kind of, I think, the impetus to say, okay, we could take this to the next level and do a full swing choir starting next year.
So did they perform on regular concerts, or did they have an opportunity to perform that semester?
They performed in two different settings. One was as part of the Fine Arts Festival, there was always like a talent show. So they performed in that. Plus, the final choral concert of the year was always a little different than the other choral concerts, in that the last one, which is usually early June, we would do a combination of each of the choirs would sing, as well as students could audition to do solos or quartets or trios. So Morning, Noon, and Night could perform in that sort of setting. But now in retrospect, thinking back, I don't know that was what BJ and Paul did in the choral program. So they probably didn't perform in that one. Now that I think about it, they would have had it been the choral program of 2 years later, I guess. Well, the girls that were in the Morning, Noon, and Night were, I think, probably sophomores or juniors. And they then kind of got real excited about having a full swing choir and showing them some of the things that swing choirs do. So they really helped kind of push it along. So then the next year it just became, and of course I had to go through, because Paul was still doing the choral program. So I wanted to do it with his blessing, and he was behind it 100%. He said, I have no interest myself in doing it, he said, but if you want to do it, that's tremendous. Please do. It was an audition group, and there was one criteria to be in the swing choir. You had to be in another music ensemble. Either choir, or it could be band. But as long as you were in a music ensemble, then you could try out for the renditions. And my intent was to go equal number of guys and gals. And I didn't want to have really less than 20 if I could, and didn't want to go more than 24. So we ended up, because of limitations on number of people, ended up having 20, 10. There were a couple of the girls that were actually in that Morning, Noon, and Night group that were also then in the renditions, and kind of giving them my ideas. And I'm not a choreographer or a dancer, just ask my wife. But I could kind of give them an idea of the sorts of things, and they took the ball and ran with it, and they did all the choreography. We put together a little combo of pianist, guitar, and drums, or piano, bass, and drums. And actually the pianist was Mike McKeever, Ray McKeever's youngest son, who was a junior at the time. And he actually was pianist both years. And then we had a couple different drummers and a couple different bass players that helped us out. But so he was there for rehearsals as well as as well as all the performances.
So all student-based.
All student-based. When I talked to the administration about moving to the choir position, I knew Art had just finished his degree, and I knew he was a strong string person that he would be someone they might want to look at. So I was kind of making sure I had a succession plan there kind of put together for that. That was my first real gig as a choir director. Of course, I had done a lot of church choirs. As a matter of fact, at that time, I was, that last year, I was directing the Illinois Valley Symphony Orchestra. I was directing 2 church choirs, and I had the renditions and I had the choral programs. So I had plenty going on, but the fact that they had a beautiful music library. I mean, I never spent my budget on music. I always had more there than I needed. And the kids were enthusiastic. There were always a couple that just were so talented, they blew me away, in terms of singing, even kind of backing up a little bit. When I was putting together morning, noon, and night and then getting ready to do the renditions, there was a senior, Tim Ferguson, tremendously talented piano player and musician, and he did several arrangements for us in high school students. So it was all students. I was just there to kind of keep things moving along. Todd Bowermaster, I'm sure you know the Bowermasters. He was in the band, but he was also in the swing choir for both years, and he was extremely talented and very, had a beautiful voice. John Williams, a great voice. Mark Palmer was awesome. So there were so many, and ladies wise, Monica DeMall, Marla Pike. I can go back and name as they go through my Rolodex here. They're popping up. But a lot of really, really talented kids that wanted to do it and could do it and made sure it happened.
Now with renditions, I know you made a recording. Can you tell us what year you did that and kind of what went into it?
Sure. We did that my last year, so that had been 78, 79 school year we did it. So not the first year, we did it the second year. And it was a bit of and we had done one when I was in the newcomers, so that kind of motivated me to say, I think we could do this too. So we contracted with a local recording studio of some sort. I don't know who they were. I can't remember anymore, but they did the recording and then, mastered the album for us. But it was quite an ordeal because we're so used to singing while they're dancing and moving around. It was kind of neat to be able to come together as a choir for the recording, and you could sing then, you could actually hear better and stuff. So it worked out well.
Where did you record the album?
We actually recorded it right in the choir room. Okay. Yeah, they said the acoustics were, and I don't know that they actually had a formal studio of any kind. But it worked fine there. It worked out well. Maybe this factored in a little bit to my ultimately leaving was, I think I maybe bit off a little more than I could chew. I had a little trouble saying no. And with the swing choir, with the rehearsal schedule, and then once we started performing, we would do 30 or 40 performances in a year. I mean, we were going out to the Kiwanis and the NOA, and you name it, we performed for them. So we were performing a couple times a week, a lot of times. And then with the 2 church choirs. So I guess that...
Maybe self-imposed?
Self-imposed, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, just I didn't know when to say no, I guess, a little bit. I enjoyed it, and the Illinois Valley Symphony Orchestra, that took quite a bit of time as well. And during concert weeks, we'd ramp up the rehearsal schedule. That'd be 4 nights of rehearsals right before the concert. So I wish I had some recollections of how we did and who did and what did, but we were involved in those. I remember going to Chicago to the IMEA, MENC, and others. And actually, the newcomers also started a swing choir clinic, and then they had a swing choir competition. They worked with like 73 swing choirs and clinics, and then they invited the top 15 back to be in a competition, and we were invited back to be in that competition as
Do you
well.
remember how you did?
I don't. I'm thinking we actually couldn't go. We were invited back, but that was the same year the basketball team went to state, and I think it competed with one of the games down in Champaign, if I remember right. And I wanted to say, do you want to do this? But the students, they're seniors.
Sure.
It was pretty important for them to be there. I've always, in anything I've done in life, I've always thought it has to be fun, however you define that, but I have to enjoy it. And I think what I brought was a lot of enthusiasm. I had a decent skill set. I I could do, I think, the skill part of it that needed to be done. But I think it was my enthusiasm and my dedication to take them to the next level. The students. We worked hard. Rehearsals were a combination of very serious hard work and a lot of laughter. Kind of back and forth, and that was it was a joy, and I think that's what made it work for me, I guess. In terms of facilities, I don't recall there being any big changes. I don't remember there being anything in that area, but administration-wise, there were several changes. Ralph Nelson was principal when I first got there, and Gordon Fiddler was superintendent, and then that changed. Ed Johnston became principal, if I remember right, and I can't remember the name of the gentleman that was superintendent, but
Gearing,
yeah, Dr. Gearing, yeah. So there were changes there, and in the school board as well. But it was pretty seamless. Interesting. I was kind of thinking about this the other day. I worked my first summer. I was in Ottawa. I worked for Ed Johnston because he was a shop teacher at the time, and I wanted a job to do something to keep me busy during the summer, so I worked for him. And then when he became principal, and Ralph Nelson as principal was so supportive of the music. I mean, just very much so. And I remember talking with Ed when he first became principal. He says, John, he says, I don't really get it, but I'm going to support you 100%. And that was Ed. It was just something. I reached the point that I thought, well, if I stay another year, I'll probably never leave. I was enjoying it. There was not a bad moment in it, really. I loved it. Working with Ray McKeever, dear friend, great guy. There's nothing there that was not to like, but I just kind of had this restlessness. And I thought, this is probably the time to go. If they say go out on top, I don't know if I was on top. I hadn't been there long enough to be on top of anything, but it was all going well. I thought, I think this is it. And I really wanted to explore the business side of my interest as well.
And how did you do that?
I went to Illinois State. My undergrad, of course, was in music, so I went to Illinois State to get an MBA. So I took all the business courses for the bachelor's side of it, and then I did the MBA degree and did.
What year did you graduate with your master's?
I graduated in '83. I enjoy music more as a hobby than as a vocation because I think I overdid it a little bit. So I figured I could keep doing the music, and actually once I left there and came up here to East Dubuque and started teaching at Loras College, I was very active in music up here as well after leaving. Well, my path wasn't real straight. I kind of zigzagged a little bit, but I after finishing my master's at Illinois State, then I worked for State Farm in Bloomington for a year. Decided that really wasn't what I wanted to do, so then I thought I would look for other opportunities, and what I did was I moved up here. I bought a house in Galena, an old 1840s vintage federal home, and decided to restore that and try and decide what I wanted to do. Then I thought, well, I probably have to work. So then I actually got a teaching job in LaGrange, Illinois, where I taught elementary school orchestra for 1 year.
Oh.
Okay. Did that for a year, just kind of and I know I had no intent to stay with that, but it was just a gap filler. And then I started my PhD at Illinois in finance when I saw the job posting for Loras College, which is up in Dubuque, Iowa. And I had a home up here that was just sitting vacant. So I thought, well, this seems like a no-brainer. So I played in the Dubuque Symphony, played cello in the Dubuque Symphony, and I also directed the Dubuque Youth Symphony for my first couple of years. And then that got to be, kids came into the picture and got busy, and my administrative responsibilities at the college ramped up some, so I kind of stepped away from that for a bit. But then Loras College, being a liberal arts college, there were so many opportunities to do music there. I was in, we had a couple faculty staff plays where I was involved with music, and we had a lot of concerts. We had a choir among faculty members. So I did a lot of music in that regard, and gave cello lessons and directed 4 or 5 different church choirs over the many years and stuff. So I kept dabbling in it for a long time. I retired 2 years ago, and I haven't really, I've really gotten into woodworking and building. I built this room and that sort of thing, and that's become something that I do as a hobby now. So I do a lot of that, a lot of cabinetry and things like that. And then I have 2 children, and one lives down in Texas, one is in Naperville. So Well, I kept in contact with Ray for a number of years, McKeever, of course, and Dale Scheib, who was the student teacher who came the same time I did. He and I are still best friends, and we talk a lot and visit a lot, but not as much as I wished I had. I think I went back once or twice and saw people, but I just didn't follow up, and that's one thing I sort of regret. I wish I had kept closer to some of those people, but that's something I can still rekindle, I think. It's one of those things where sometimes I look back and say, well, should I regret not staying in Ottawa? And but I don't do that to myself. I loved it when I left. I felt great about my experience there, and that can never be taken away from me. And what's happened since then has been great. I've had the same sorts of experiences teaching at Loras that I had teaching in Ottawa. So it's been a great life.